Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Storied Human. This is Lynn Thompson, and today I'm really happy to have somebody I used to work with at AT&T and Lucent. Her name is Ellen Martin, and she's had a varied career over the span of her career in telecommunications. She's worked as a system admin, a developer. She's worked in customer support as a systems engineer. That's when I knew her, and a systems architect. And most recently, she's been a scrum master. She's been retired for a few years now. She lives in Arizona. And I wanted to catch up with her because I think her story is really inspiring. She entered the field when it was pretty much male dominated, and she made her way. And I'm sure she has some tips and tricks to share with us about that. So welcome, Ellen.
Hi, Lynn. How are you doing?
Good. It's nice to have you here. So start us off at the beginning. How were you raised? What was your family like? And what I really like to ask people is, what was the 8-year-old Ellen like? Like, what did she like to do?
Oh, wow. Well, the 8-year-old Ellen thought she was going to be a concert pianist.
Oh, wow.
The piano was my passion when I was a kid. I started playing when I was 3 years old. I was very, very young. And that was what I was going to do. I was going to be a concert pianist.
I love that.
So, yeah. And my parents were wonderful. They bought me a piano and I practiced and played, and I first went to music school. My mom, I think I told you, Lynn, my mom was a British war bride. And my mom and dad got married at the end of World War II in my mother's village in northern England. And they moved over here to Illinois and had 4 of us. And I wound up living on Long Island in Virginia, and then went from Long Island to college up in upstate New York. And I majored in music the first time.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a music major.
How did that change?
And then I met this neat guy who went to the engineering college across the river in Potsdam and got married and quit college.
Yeah, because you started having kids early, right?
Yeah, I was very young. I had my first baby at 20.
That's amazing. And you were ready. Yeah. And you met Cliff when you were like 19?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Actually, 18.
18. Oh, my gosh. Yep. So you met your husband when you were 18. You dropped out of college. That's wild.
Suddenly the piano was not as fascinating as getting married to Cliff.
I love that. And you're still with Cliff. How long have you been married?
52 years in May.
I can't even believe it. That's so wonderful. So I guess it was a good decision.
I guess it worked out.
It certainly did. It certainly did. So a couple things are occurring to me. One is that a lot of people who are good with computers are musical. So you have that connection. Yeah, you have that kind of brain.
You know, that's one of the things that got me hired when I first went to interview with Bell Labs in 1982. One of the people asked me, well, if you were a music major, what made you go into computers? And I said, well, computers are very like playing an instrument. You put the right thing in and it comes out working. If you put the right thing into a piano, it comes out beautiful music. Put the right thing into a computer program, it comes out doing what you want it to do. Yeah. So that's what I answered, and they hired me.
I love that. But you seem to, even as a young woman, you seem to understand like the structure of music and the structure of programming. Like there's a similar structure and there's a logic, like your brain works that way. And I'm so intrigued by that. I see that a lot in developers, and especially developers. I see programmers and music. I see that connection. So tell me about, you said the first time you majored in music, and we know that you stopped for a while, right? And you had kids, you married Cliff and had children. Mm-hmm. You had 3 kids, right?
Right. After my last baby, I was at a group, moms getting together in the afternoons with their children, playing and having coffee and stuff. And one night after I went home to Cliff, took the kids home, made dinner and all that, I said to him, there's got to be something else besides sitting all afternoon and having coffee with moms and waiting for my kids to come home from school. And he said, why, what are you thinking? And I said, I think I want to go back to college. And he said, okay. He never said, doing what? He just said, okay. And it was about that time that my brothers had gotten jobs at Bell Labs. They just graduated from college. They got jobs at Bell Labs in New Jersey and started talking to me about, hey, why don't you try going into computers? So I got kind of interested, and I signed up that September. That September in 1980, I signed up to go for computer science. And from the minute I started, I just thought it was great. It was like a big game.
It was a big match, a good match for you.
So it
wasn't that a time in 1980? There weren't a lot of women in those classes, right?
No, there weren't. It was mostly, and remember, I was 30 years old at the time in 1980, and it was me and a whole bunch of 18-year-olds in classes. I thought it was great. I was not interested in, the guy over 2 seats over from me. I wasn't interested in the social life. I wasn't interested in anything except graduating.
You were super focused on the.
Yeah, so I was super focused. So being 30 and going to college was great. And it didn't bother me that it was mostly young men in the classroom. I wound up being a teaching assistant there.
Cool.
And filling in, and because one of the computer science teachers was ill, had gotten sick, and they asked me if I wouldn't mind being a teacher, and I said okay. So I taught and went to school at the same time. It was really a fun time. I enjoyed it a lot. And when I graduated at the top of my class.
Not surprised.
And my brothers again helped me out and took the resume to Bell Labs. And I got interviews down in New Jersey at 3 places. And when I flew in, and the limousine picked me up and drove me to Homedale for my first interview, and I came over the hill. I don't know if you remember when you come over the hill to Homedale and you see that giant building. I remember thinking, I got to work here.
I remember it really was impressive.
Yeah, it was very impressive.
I worked just a short time there, and I was like so in love with the building. And I remember walking with people. Well, first of all, let's explain it for people who've never seen it, right? It's this giant building with this like dark glass, or it looks like dark glass all around. And when you walk the perimeter, somebody told me it's a quarter mile. Like we had like a walking club, and we would walk around the outside, and it was a quarter mile. So it was super high tech looking and super modern. And you must have been so like excited.
I was very excited. And then you walk in the building, Lynn. Remember that huge atrium?
Yes, it was huge.
For all the way to the top, above the top story. It was gorgeous, and it was all glassed in. It was huge.
It was beautiful.
And I remember being so impressed.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, the job that I took wasn't in Homedale; it was in Whippany, which was another massive building.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to work there from day one.
You were entering a world, right? A whole different world. I remember how many. It was like a little city. Like they had a gift shop, and they had the cafeteria. Yeah, and the bank and the dry cleaners. I mean, you could just like live there.
Yes.
So it was amazing.
You could.
So what
you could have a medical. You could get sick.
Yeah.
You could get sick, and then you could go down on the first floor, and they had this great big medical facility with doctors and everything, and they would give you antibiotics. It was great. It was a big city. So it was really quite something in those days.
I remember being even like I was at the ERC, which is an engineering research center near Hopewell. And I remember getting sick one day, and I wasn't an employee, and they still took care of you. It was just so different then. You'd go to the doctor's office, and they would give you something, and they were great. So yeah, that's like a whole, like a homey kind of different atmosphere that they used to have. So what year was that when they hired you?
1982. I started in September 1982 at Whippany.
So it only took you 2 years to get your degree.
Yes, because I started out and they took a lot of credits from my music degree.
That's like amazing.
Those first 2 years in college is mostly liberal arts and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's so cool. So how did you handle the how old were your kids when you started in 1982?
Okay, we moved to New Jersey, and my oldest was 12, and my youngest was 4.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had, I had the whole situation with finding daycare and all the rest of that.
Yeah.
Because it was never easy, and it was not easy at all in those days.
No,
There weren't too many daycare facilities. So
that's what I was going to ask about. How did you do that? How did you handle that?
we advertised, looked around at churches, and just looked for people. What I wanted was somebody to come into the house to babysit the kids, because they were happiest then. But what really happened, we had a couple of years of start and stop with different people coming into the home to keep an eye on the kids. But my kids weren't happy. And then my younger brother moved right down the road from us. And his wife, Laura, the kids' Aunt Laura, had just had a baby. And she said to me, so why don't you just have the kids come here?
Aww.
I will never forget that. It was so wonderful, because we had family watching the kids. 2 of them were in school, and the youngest was just about to start. But they would go there after school, and it was great.
Nice for everybody.
Took an awful lot. You know how it is. Daycare is not a simple thing.
There's never an easy answer.
Watching your kids,
that's
watching
excellent.
your kids is important.
That's so good to hear. Yeah, that was like a stroke of luck that she was like the timing of that.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, and then you didn't have to worry, because it just seems like as moms we're either at work worrying or at home worrying. Worrying about one side of our lives.
Yes, yeah, and if one of them got sick, she was wonderful, because she was just up the road from their elementary school, so she would pick them up. It was a huge relief, a big load off your shoulders. So I highly sympathize with young moms these days. Yeah. Working and their kids and all that. It wasn't a simple thing, and it still isn't a simple thing.
I'm sad to say that it still isn't. I agree. So tell me what those first working days were like. I mean, I'm thinking there weren't a lot of men around. Like, how did you? I mean, not a lot of women around. You were probably just a couple of you, right?
No, there was in Bell Labs. Bell Labs in 1982 had more women in it than many companies. They were very progressive, and they had a good mix of men and women. Good. And so there was my group. My boss was a male, but there was 3 or 4 ladies working with me.
That's so good.
And so it wasn't like I was in this totally male environment, Bell Labs. The software area in those days, there were more and more women coming in and getting jobs and getting work there. So that was a good thing. And that makes you feel more comfortable, because it's much more of a mixed group instead of all men and me. No, I didn't encounter the all male stuff until I started getting involved with the regional telephone companies, the RBOCs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And when I would go out there and be doing customer support and stuff like that, that's when I found, hey, wow, everybody in this room is male, and then there's me. And I would walk into the room, and they'll all say, okay, guys, clean it up. Ellen's here.
And then
which never made me feel bad.
Yeah.
They were all of them were mostly very great to me. So I didn't really encounter an all male culture until I went outside of Bell Labs.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. So how many years did you work total? A lot, right?
Yeah, from 1982, and I retired in 2005.
Wow.
But I worked for Bell Labs, then Lucent, and Lucent forced retired a whole bunch of us in 2001. And then I had a year hiatus, and then I moved to Arizona thinking I was fully retired in 2001. And in 2004, I got a job again as a contractor at AT&T and felt like I came home.
That's so cool. Even out there, right? It was similar, right?
Definitely. It was definitely home. I mean, I knew a lot of the people that I was working with in the old days. We all hadn't retired by then.
Of course. There was a big shift in the telecom industry.
Yes.
So did you get to work at home those last few years?
Yes. From 2005 until 2015. I worked at home exclusively and no traveling. It was great. I loved it.
That is great. I think that's such a fun way to finish up,
It
doing
is.
what you
It is.
like, being at home, right? So it's not killing you. Because I
Yep.
work at home now and it's like night and day. I can
It
do
is.
I can do my job and it doesn't like wear me out because I don't have the commute, I don't have the travel, and I don't have the worry about getting ready, and I don't have any of that.
Yep.
So you
No,
didn't
it was
really
great.
so you didn't really finish until 2015?
Yeah. I had a few years hiatus in there where I
Yeah.
thought I was retired, but then
You're like,
wasn't.
we're not done with
No,
you.
go back to work.
So you did work pretty late. Like you did a lot of years,
Yeah, I did.
but
I
you
did.
seem
So I
so
guess it
happy
was
now.
retirement was an adjustment
Yeah.
at first because I don't know if this is a female thing. I remember my husband practically danced out of the building the day he retired. He was so thrilled. He was, really excited about being retired. He never looked back. But for me, it was an adjustment. I
Yeah.
didn't really quite know what to do with me.
Yeah.
It was the same sort of adjustment that happened in 2001 when Loose and Force retired us, because all of a sudden I didn't quite know who I was anymore,
Yeah.
because my identity was totally wrapped up in working for Bell Labs, AT&T, Lucent. The people that I worked with were my social group.
Yeah.
So
And
I felt a little bereft at first.
well, it
And
makes
then,
sense too, because you didn't choose it, right? It was you
right,
had no time to prepare and you didn't choose to leave. I think
no,
that's so jarring. It's like,
it is.
okay, you're done. And you have like this whole social life and this whole like I felt like I was only with you guys for 4 years and I felt like you guys were family. I'm still talking to you all these years
I
later. And
know, all these years later.
there's like a bond, so I totally get that you were adrift,
Yep.
like that you were
Yeah. And
set
so
adrift.
at that point, that was when I decided I'm never going back. Little did I know.
The
Because
best
I did
laid
go back.
plans, right?
Yes, the best laid plans. And it worked. It did work out. The 10 years were great. I enjoyed it. And then when I retired the second time, it was also a bit jarring because that first Monday morning, you're like, okay, now what do I do? Luckily, I have a very organized husband who was a manager and a project manager in his career. And he makes lists, and we have our days all set up. We're going to do this on this day and this on this day. So that has helped me be retired.
That sounds great. We should hire him out. People don't know what to
I
do.
think so.
I think it's great. So I am looking at the coolest career. I love what you did with it. I love how you pivoted. I would like to know, do you have any advice for the younger women who are considering a career in tech?
I think definitely do it. Definitely go into it because you're never bored. But as far as advice is concerned, one of the things that helped me throughout my entire career was strong women who were willing to help me, who were willing to mentor me. One of them being Teresa Weaver, who is the lady that you're going to be interviewing, another one of the ladies you're going to be interviewing.
Yes.
Who she was very open about, I'll teach you everything I know and help you out. So Teresa was just the first one of those many women that helped me throughout my career. So when you go into it, make sure make sure that you lend a helping hand to other people. Not just women. It shouldn't be just women, but that was one of the things that helped me through my career was the strong women that I had as role models. So make sure that you help others.
I love that. And you guys were like that with me. I always felt like I could lean on you guys. And you were always so helpful, so generous with information. I got to include Sandy Sang in that because she was always a big supporter of others and helpful as
yes,
heck.
she was.
And
Yep.
And what an environment, because we have that sort of like stereotype about women and how we don't trust each other and blah, blah, blah. That just wasn't evident to me there.
Not there
At all. It was just,
no.
and so that just takes like this pressure off. You don't have to worry about who's your friend or who's going to stab you in the back. It's like you're a
That's right.
team. You're a team
That's
and you
right.
help each other. And it's very pleasant. I remember just enjoying it so much. And I missed it when I left.
Me
That was a
too.
special place. And you're so right. A large part of why it was special was those women. And
Hmm.
I think that's such a great thing to cultivate throughout your life, is to find those kind of women, and we can be
Yes.
sisters to each other. I never had sisters, so I'm always looking for sisters.
Well, and that
And
was that, that's a very good word to use because I do feel like we were sisters.
I feel the
Um,
same. It's
yeah.
not like, I mean, I say, oh, here's someone I used to work with. That's not it. Here's my friend. That's not really it. Here's someone I
Yeah.
can count on no matter what. Here's someone I
Yes.
love, you know?
Yes.
Here's someone I love. And how lucky were we?
Very. I felt like
Yeah.
I was always very lucky. I working for Bell Labs, Lucent, AT&T. I always felt like I was really lucky in the people that I worked with and for. Oh, everybody runs into somebody in your career that you're not real thrilled with,
Yeah.
and that they're not real thrilled with you. But for the most part, I felt like I had really good people that I worked with.
Yeah.
Even at the end, helping me get a contracting job when I went back into AT&T and I was working remotely, were women that I knew and saying, "Oh no, you want to hire this person."
Hmm.
So even then,
Yeah. Well, you got me that I could not buy a job when I tried to get back into the corporate world. I had taken some time off because 2001, I had little babies and I just said, I'm not going to even try.
mhm,
2001 was insane. So not babies, but I had very young children, and I stayed home for 5 years. And then everybody's like, well, we don't even care what you did 5 years ago. You have no experience that we're interested in. And you
yep.
were the one that made that connection for me that got me into Verizon. So even then you were helping. I mean, like from Arizona.
I still try to. If somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, can you give me a recommendation?" I mean, they're getting fewer and farther between because now it's been over 5 years since I've left the
Yeah.
workforce. But I still try to help people if they
Yeah.
want it, because I think it's important.
Well, I think you pass it
You
on,
don't
which is lovely.
you don't wind up with a network unless you work it, unless you help it.
So true.
And I think a
So true.
network is really important.
You got to put it in. You get what you put in, right? You get back what
Yes,
you put in.
I
Well,
agree.
I love that. And as a beneficiary of your kindness, I agree that it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And Rich and I still talk about it because, Rich worked with us at Liberty Corner, and we still talk about it, how much we miss it. And
Yep.
he got hired by Ericsson, and he said it's almost like the old days, Lynn, because it was the Swedish telecom, and they used to be Telcordier, Belcor, or whatever they were. Um, there's just a something about that culture. There's a something about those
Yep.
people. And we always say how much we enjoyed working with, we always say we like working with nerds.
Which is what we all were, I guess.
That's where we're happiest, is working with nerds.
Exactly.
Well, you're a success story, but you're also about caring about people and connecting with people. And I hope you feel good about your career, because it's so much about that too, which I love. And I think young women can take heart that that's out there and that they can continue that. And I
Yep.
think if we offer that view of the world,
I
that's
think so.
super. Yeah, I love this story. And I can't wait till we get us all back together. Oh my goodness. The group interview is going to be a hoot.
It's going to be very interesting, Lynn.
It always was with us. All right. Thanks for your time, Ellen. And
Thanks,
I'll
Lynn.
talk to you soon. We will talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
And thank you for listening to The Storied Human. And take care. And now, enjoy a few more bars of my new intro and outro song written by my son, Brendan Talian. I love that Brazilian feel, and I really like having his original music on my show. So enjoy.